Hey everyone, welcome to the Financing Your Education webinar, Paying for School webinar. We're going to get underway here at 6 o'clock. My name is Lane Laram. I'm a senior here at Montana State studying agricultural business. I'm from Galata, Montana. So we have a bunch of different guests here today to bring in good information, but I'm going to give you a couple pieces of advice. So we can look at our technology slide here. I've talked about this a little bit tonight. If you have any questions, we're going to have the chat feature out. So go on the chat feature. I see a lot of you guys are already using that right now, so that's awesome. And so if you can't hear me talking right now, this is a good sign to call in. So that's all the information for the webinar. You can join by phone, and you can still listen and you can watch through your computer. But if you can't hear me, call in. Yeah, and then once again, use the chat feature. This will be posted later on, and yeah, so we're just about ready to get underway. I'm going to let our first guest hop in here, and whenever he's ready, he's more than welcome to start, but thank you for attending.
Thank you, Lane. Appreciate that. Hope the audio is good. Everything out there, good evening and welcome to the webinar. This is Financing Your Education, How to Pay for School. So I have myself, my name is James Brochette. I'm the Director of Financial Aid here at Montana State University. Been here for 5 years and been in financial aid for over 35, inching up to that 40 mark. So have a lot of experience in the financial aid world. And again, just want to welcome you to this. We'll be going through this presentation. There will be chat for you to answer or ask questions and people will answer, and then some Q&A at the very end. So forgive me looking up and down at the slides and kind of some notes here as we go, but we'll kind of kick that off and go. You're looking at the presentation outline kind of today, and we will jump kind of right into that with the next slide. So just introduced myself, and then Keith and Anders, as they kind of hop on the screen for their sessions, will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their bios as well. So again, I'm with Office of Financial Aid, and we want to talk first kind of about cost of attendance. And you're going to see some numbers here. And first thing we always want to address is college is expensive. I think we all know that, but we look at this as an investment. We look at this in terms of what this end result could be. When you invest in the stock market or do something else, you're looking at long-term gains. So what you put in it today hopes to give you an award or a higher award or a bigger amount sometime down the road. That can go up and down, as a lot of things do, but we want to look at this really as some sort of strategic investment, both in you as a student and parents for your child in terms of what that looks like. So this is the beginning step to that. You'll look at others when you compare schools. If you do, you will find similar kinds of cost of attendance features here and what goes on. And that's kind of what we're going to focus on this slide a little bit. We talk a lot about what it costs to go to school, and certainly what we call direct expenses. Those are two things for you as an incoming freshman. That can be tuition and fees for sure. That is what you pay to the school. And since you're a new freshman, you also have to live on campus. And so your room and board is also a direct educational expense. So direct educational costs are what you pay to Montana State University. Now, federal rules allow us to build you an eligibility portfolio really that's based on what it can take for you or what kind of costs kind of go into that. And we call some of those more indirect costs because those are different certainly for everybody. And certainly everybody can incur different costs. Even if you're 12 credits or 13 credits or 14 credits, your costs change in that field a little bit. This is all based on a 12 credit kind of picture in terms of what you're looking at cost-wise. But that indirect expense, what we kind of want to focus on there is that these are elements that, again, we're allowed to put in and build in for you. It doesn't mean you incur those as direct educational expenses and what you pay Montana State University. These are what you incur outside of that. So books and supplies, that you're going to be going to the bookstore, or you might be purchasing something on Amazon, or you might be getting something else from a third party that the faculty person directs you to in order to do books and supplies. So that's a little bit off of what MSU does. Again, then we have personal transportation and miscellaneous expenses. And for you students and for maybe parents a little bit more directly, when we talk about some of these indirect expenses, and even when we talk about room and board, we're talking about expenses that you already have incurred for your student in some capacity already. You've already been feeding your student for many years, right? And so those costs continue. And what we can do is help use financial aid to help you pay those costs while you're going to school. But the cost is something that you've already incurred. If there's health or just day-to-day medical expenses, driving a car, gasoline, those kinds of things, those are those indirect costs that build in this total cost of attendance. So that sticker shock of the cost of attendance, I want to cushion that a little by saying some of these things you have already incurred and some of these things you will continue to incur during this college experience in terms of what goes on. So, but we want to focus on what you really pay to MSU. That's what your bill will hold versus other things that we have. And again, as we talk about some of these awards and some of these different things, we can give you aid up to that maximum amount that you're kind of seeing in this picture now. These amounts reflect 2022, 2023 amounts, and they will go up probably 3% or so, at least for the 23-24 year and annually thereafter. In Montana, those figures of tuition are set by the Board of Regents every couple of years, and then we kind of build our cost of attendance based on what's going. And as you've been experiencing at home and other places coming out of COVID and some different things, costs have gone up for a number of different things. So those are reflected in those costs that you kind of see here. You choose whether or not you want aid to help you pay for those or not, or whether you kind of incur those the same way that you've already been incurring a lot of what those look like. But changes to that are definitely tuition and fees, housing a little bit, even though you've been housing your child, you're now paying for a little bit of housing. And then these other miscellaneous expenses, books and supplies you've been paying in high school, possibly, or whatever kind of environment you might be participating in, you've already incurred some of that as well. So what helps us kind of drive that? And where do you start with what that is? And for financial aid purposes, we call this the FAFSA, or the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. For 2023-24, this application is already open. It opens on October 1st every year. So the thing to kind of get on your calendar right now is this piece of October 1. Every year, you want to put a FAFSA piece in there to remind you to do the FAFSA form every year, sometime off after October 1st. But it's an annual application for every year that you're going to be in college. So we call it the FAFSA. You're going to hear about it termed as the FAFSA, but it's a free application from the Federal Department of Education that you put in information on about you and your family. That kicks back information to the colleges that you list on that application. We use that information to start kind of crafting other things we might need, and then to craft some sort of award portfolio for you. Now, this application uses what we call prior year tax information. That means it's using 2 years ago. So this next coming tax year will be based on, I always get this kind of mixed up in my head because I'm already looking at the next year. We're filing 22, so this will be based on 2020 tax information in terms of what's there. So have that information ready when you go out to do the FAFSA. There is a feature in there called the IRS data retrieval. That is where you can ask the Department of Ed to say, hey, I'd like to go to the IRS, pull in this tax information and drop that in and get that. And if you can use that, if you are eligible to use that, I encourage you strongly to kind of use that IRS data retrieval tool. It helps kind of secure that information, gives us accurate information, and keeps you out of potentially us asking you for information to clarify something or to kind of do something else along the way. So keep that in mind as you kind of go through. So as incoming freshmen, it's more than likely that you will need parental information on this. So student, even as you look at that, parents will likely, until you reach what we call an independent status, which for most people is age 24. So for this undergraduate career, you're looking at parents probably being involved and included on the FAFSA. MSU, Montana State, has a priority deadline that we call, that is December 1st. That is not a drop dead date to do the FAFSA. That is a preferential filing date. And by preferential, what we mean is we have some pots of financial aid money that is limited. And when that money is limited, we have to find a way to kind of put students in an eligible bucket to be considered for those funds. And so that December 1st date is that preferential filing date to still do that. So if you haven't done a FAFSA for 22, 23 yet, you still have time to meet this preferential filing deadline of December 1st. All this can be done at studentaid.gov. And that's going to be an address that you're going to really become acquainted with if you're going to use financial aid to kind of go through this financing period of your college career. In that, you do your FAFSA form, and you will also do, if you're going to be taking out loans, you will also be doing loan information about that. But studentaid.gov also has a lot of just general information about the programs and doing different things. It's where your profiles will live, all these different things. So it will be a site over the next several years that you're going to get very familiar with. Why do that? There's a lot of students who say, I know I'm not going to be eligible for anything. And we kind of want to go away from that a little bit, because that may be true in terms of what you think you're applying for or eligibility for. And oftentimes we think in terms of federal aid, and we kind of put that into a bucket that says, I know I'm not going to get that based on the amount of money I earn or where that might be. Yeah, that may be true, but it also opens up avenues of doors for other things. And what you see on the slide here is it does make a difference for scholarships, and it makes a difference in scholarships more today than it did before in terms of getting yourself kind of in a bucket. So, and it puts you in the best position for us to be able to help you if you do the FAFSA form. Coming out of a pandemic again and everything that goes along with that, and even prior to pandemic, we know that life changes for people. And so what if something happened in terms of an income change or a job change or something like that down the road? If that FAFSA is on file for us, we're ready to go, and you to respond to something differently by saying, hey, this circumstance has changed, we can hop right into that application and get something going. So it makes a process over the course of the academic cycle for a year smoother, and for us to be able to kind of deal with you in a different way. So we want to be able to do that as quickly as possible. And if that FAFSA form's already on file and we're there and you've just not responded or have chose not to respond to something, we can recreate some eligibility or kind of reevaluate eligibility if that's already on file without you starting at square one and waiting several days in order for us to get that information, and then kind of moving back kind of along those lines. So can't tell you how much I strongly encourage you to do the FAFSA. It just puts you and us in a better position to be able to kind of give you help the way that you would like to be, and for us to be able to answer questions about other picture, other scenarios, other things that you might be dealing with. It puts us in a position of being able to do that. And for those that award scholarships, sometimes whether they're on campus or off campus, they're using that as a trigger in a lot of cases just to say, hey, can you give me a little bit of information about where this is? And when people are making decisions about scholarships, they're just checking boxes in a lot of cases to say, do I have it or do I not have it? And so it can help in that way, for they can just know what that student profile looks like a lot easier when that FAFSA is already on file. So encourage you to do that. Again, it's done annually in terms of what that looks like. And October 1st is the day we want to get that on for you. So with that free application for federal state student aid, the core amount of financial aid programs we have are the federal financial aid programs, and those consist of the federal Pell Grant, the federal SCOG grants, federal work study, which we also have state work study, and federal student loans. So those are the things that kind of run through in terms of your eligibility, and at the very least, we package you with what that looks like. So grants are what we call need-based aid, and in order to get that FAFSA form has to demonstrate to us as an institution that you hit some qualifying markers that say you're eligible for those programs. We're kind of a third party in that sense, that the Department of Ed tells us, here's what this index is. And I won't go into that too much because that gets confusing, but they tell us what that is, and that meets a grant profile, then we're able to give that to you. If it doesn't, then we kind of go through that. But that SCOG grant, that federal SCOG grant, is one of those that we have a limited amount of money in. So that preferential filing date is key in order to being able to award an SCOG grant. So if you're eligible for the Pell, that's great. In order to supplement that with some SCOG, we want to be able to have that preferential filing date on file so that we can award those funds in that significant way. We call that a campus-based program. Another campus-based program are our work study funds, and that comes in both federal and state. So we have two buckets of what that looks like. But again, those pots are limited in dollars. So we use those, again, using that preferential filing date to make awards for those. The eligibility is broader than just becoming eligible for a federal Pell Grant or the SCOG grant. So that window opens quite a bit in order to be eligible for, it is a need-based program. So in order to be eligible for a work study program. Now, the idea of students working, just to comment on that for a minute, has changed a little bit over the last several years and really kind of with the pandemic. And we're not seeing as many students interested in that. And I'm here to kind of also kind of plug a work-study program really earnestly to say that working a little bit while you're going to school is of great benefit. There are many studies that kind of support this effort that says just a little bit of management there, just a little bit of kind of almost kind of disengaging from academics for a little bit to kind of go work someplace allows you to kind of coordinate and get your brain in a different place, and you actually can perform a little bit better academically with some work going on. Now, that doesn't have to be work study. There are jobs both on campus and off campus within the community that you are free to work at. But we had these work study funds. What that does is it allows me as a financial aid office, right, to say, student, I want to hire you, and I can hire now, instead of one student and pay them 100% on my budget, I can hire 3 students because I only have to pay them 30% out of my budget for that, what that is. So I get to maximize my effort. So using work study across campus is really a huge benefit to the campus population in general, because we can get many students to work, whereas regular, fiscal kind of constraints would allow us not to be able to do that. So we want to be able to do that. But if you don't get work study, or if we say that you're not eligible, it does not mean that you can't work either on or off campus. It just means you aren't able to use the work study program. So many employers across campus also hire students hourly and pay 100%. So it's there. And we want to find you, though, if you're eligible for work study, and kind of help the employer and help you kind of manage that situation best that we can. You'll also see on here some student loan percentages. Those are there for your information. You'll also see those on studentaid.gov. We want you to go out and read about these direct loan, subsidized and unsubsidized loan programs. Find information out about them, do a little reading on them. There are steps to kind of go through. Your award offer will indicate whether you have one or both of those loans as a student, and then you will have to choose to accept those loans or not. Those are not pre-accepted for you, whereas Pell Grants, SCOG grants, and the work study are just kind of accepted on your behalf until you tell us you for some reason would not want those. And I hope that isn't anybody out there who would not want some of that free gift aid that is in the form of the Pell and the SCOG. So net cost, you're going to see this in your MyInfo profile when you kind of log into your award screen and kind of see what that looks like. And this is kind of what we talk about in terms of the cost to you as a student, to you as a family that's kind of out of pocket. And for those of you that are considering number of different school choices, this is what you want to break yourself down to, and looking at what is the true cost I'm going to pay out of my pocket after all aid is kind of considered and flushed out. When that's done, what is the net cost going to be to me of that? Too often families look at that cost of attendance and say, that's my ceiling or that's my floor, that's what it's costing me. And that's not necessarily what's costing you. Once you get your award letter, you're going to want to start breaking stuff down, putting stuff in columns, seeing what it's really going to cost you based on different awards and stuff that you have. So that is a true kind of piece that goes along with that. When you look at that total expense picture and everything that goes along with that, then that second piece there are some additional payment options. So if what you get out of the programs that were on the previous slide isn't enough there are certain other ways to help you supplement this piece. Certainly out-of-pocket cash is one way to do that. And then there are different loan options for parents here or for students in private loans to be able to kind of navigate different options that you can look at. You have 529 plans. You have a number of different things you can look at to kind of do that. If you've been preparing and planning for college for several years, you might have that prepaid college fund already kind of sitting there kind of in the bank to be able to do that. But you will notice on there that these are some options, and we're not trying to steer you into any one of those options. We're happy to advise you on any one of those options, but we're here just to kind of throw out the best of what's not covered by those costs, that you have difference and a gap there you may or may not need because they're indirect costs. That's kind of where you got to balance out. What is it that you really think you need to pay for school versus what is that cost of attendance telling me that I can get up to? So balance that piece out fiscally in terms of a budget that says, here's what I need versus here's what I'm allowed to have. So that's the difference between those two things. And you'll see that bottom slide too. We talked about work study, but that Hire a Bobcat is free to find any kind of jobs available on campus. You can also do that, by the way, by just kind of looking for signs at various offices and doing different things and creating relationships and then asking people if they're hiring and kind of finding that. So a lot of students try to find jobs in their educational choice of study. If you go into that department or something related to that, you might find an opportunity there as well. Resources that were kind of on that previous screen. The Federal Parent Plus loan is kind of the most common. No, I shouldn't say that. It's not the most common piece that families use to supplement what the students get in the subsidized and the unsubsidized loans for them. But it is a very common one in terms of what's there. And it's pretty flexible in terms of getting it. Parents are required to do a credit check, but they're looking for bad credit, not good credit in terms of what that is. They're looking for bad markers instead of good markers just to meet a minimum floor of eligibility. And so once you've met that, you're able to get that. For parents who maybe struggle or may not be able to get that, they have endorser options. They have a couple different things that can go along with that, but we're listing some interest rates there and loan fees parts there. What you need to know about that is that application doesn't open until May 1st. So what we would hope is that you've done the FAFSA and we've awarded you sometime in late February through March, well before May 1st, and that even if you've accepted loans at that point or want to engage in the PLUS loan for the next academic year because of this credit check and the number of days that that's good for, that doesn't really open for you for that next August until May 1st. So put a little note there next to that says if you're a parent and you want to do the PLUS loan, can't really engage in that until May 1st. But if you're in that boat, we will also be sending out communication or kind of be able to really trying hard to kind of remind you of that option as you kind of get close to what that looks like. Wrapping up a little bit more about scholarships in general, and you're going to hear Anders from admissions when he gets on here talk about MSU related recruitment scholarships and merit scholarships. He's going to go through those for you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about CAT scholarships. That is our Montana State University kind of individual application for campus-based scholarships. So colleges across campus have their own pool of funds, and this CAT scholarship application allows you to apply for most of those, not all of those, but for most of those with one application. This has been a great thing. It's been about 5 years since we put this in place, and it has streamlined this process very significantly. So it's a great tool to have. That opens on November 1st of every year. We won't say that freshmen get a lot of gravity there, but there is some to get from that. Again, like the FAFSA, I encourage you to do both the FAFSA form every year and the CAT scholarship form every year. Even if you get discouraged by saying I didn't get anything, I still strongly recommend that you do those every year because the environment is changing all the time. It's fluid in terms of what happens. Things across any kind of awards and opportunities that are in CAT scholarships, they ebb and flow with timing and everything that goes along with that. And sometimes it's just being at the right place at the right time. So I really want to encourage everybody to do that and to not get discouraged when you don't kind of get that. So many colleges on campus will kind of look at your college career instead of your high school career. And once you have that established, then they start picking at you a little better as a continuing student. So you want to establish that profile early on and kind of go along with that. And inside of that is just some essay and some narratives that you want to pay attention to that we want to talk about in terms of what that looks like, even as I move to the next slide here. But as you focus on whether they're CAT scholarship essay or an outside scholarship resource that is asking for you to write something, be very sensitive and diligent about what you write on those. They are very relevant to what's there. Nobody wants a 15-page essay to read, but what they want is substance that is more than a paragraph as well. So you got to boast about yourself a little bit. You got to find a way to kind of beat your own drum a little bit and kind of advance yourself forward with a committee that is looking at what is it that you bring to the table and what is it that you offer in return for bringing that to the table. So look at kind of what that is. Other scholarship resources are certainly going to be your own high school organizations that you and or your parents belong to. Look around your community, look around your environment, look around your city, and just start kind of looking around for different prospects out there. Students who do a little bit of legwork here often are the ones that find that they're getting, $500 awards or getting several $500 awards because they've done a little bit of investment in time. And so what you might be able to do in an evening out of 2 or 3 hours of work might benefit you greatly in terms of what that looks like. What we'll tell you is there's very few things that I would ask you to pay for. The free application for federal student aid is stamped with free for a reason. We don't want you paying for a service or anything that gives us the same information we already get for free. Same thing is true with most scholarships, except for this one that we have listed here. If somebody's asking you to pay something, be cautious about what that is, because they may be just already telling MSU or any other provider that you get stuff that we already know. So be cautious about paying for anything that kind of tells it. I wrapped around a little bit already about what, tell your story, include your scores, but talk about you and how your community and how you've kind of been focused on preparation for your next step in college and kind of what that means to you, and how you plan to kind of give and return and kind of pay that forward, so to speak. So it's really important that you kind of sell yourself there. Many of us aren't good at that because we just want to be humble about what that is, but this is a chance to kind of break that out. You don't want too much there, just saying I deserve it because I'm great, but you want to kind of narrate that in terms of what it looks like to kind of be in existence with what that looks like. So a couple last slides for me before we get it over to Anders. Communication. We communicate you by and large via email. So it is amazing to us all the time. We say this often that we're communicating you through email, but we find that, oh, I didn't check my email, or I didn't look at that, or I haven't looked at it for a month. And you might think that it's kind of spam, but what we need you really to do is check your email. From the time you do that FAFSA, with emails coming from the Department of Education about you've completed your FAFSA, thank you, to emails coming from Montana State University, both from admissions and financial aid, or possibly any other department across campus that just is seeking more information about what's there, or notifying you that something's available for you to go look at. So check your email often, make sure it's an email that is valid, and that matches, and that we don't get rejects to. Clean it, if your email box, if it's full, so that things that can continue to kind of come through. And the note there just says, don't use your high school as your primary. You're advancing now to a different kind of place, different time. Create a different email, one that you're comfortable with. You would get a Montana State University email address, and at some point down the road, you can easily convert to that in terms of what that looks like. But make sure that you're responsive to multiple email accounts if you have them. And then both for students and parents, we have what we call FERPA, and that is the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. So mom, dad, parents, we can only share so much with you unless your student has completed a consent form that allows us to share and talk about information with you. That happens when they come to college. Really, as we kind of blanket this, you become an adult at 18 or upon graduation from high school. And this is a student experience. Mom, dad, we still want to talk to you. Student, we want to talk to your mom and dad as much as we can. This FERPA form allows us to be able to do that. We will check often as you contact us, mom and dad, just saying, hey, I want to check on my student's account. Great. Can you give me a password for the FERPA account? Once you have that, boom, doors open. We can talk at great detail about what's there. Not to prevent you from doing that, but we can talk a great deal in the generalities too about aid and how it works and a lot of different things without knowing that specific situation. So that it's not a thing that has to have, but it's a thing that helps us across campus kind of have conversations with you, certainly after you get your awards and as stuff kind of goes on in terms of what's needed there. So you'll have access to that at orientations and different things like that. So I want to make sure that you can do that. Or when we talk to you about that, or when you make a phone call and we ask you to kind of direct you to where that is, please go out and find that form and get that filled out so we can get that on file and have the most robust conversations that we can. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Anders, and then he'll be with you here right away.
All right, everybody. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you to James for being here this evening, and thank you for all of you for giving us this time. James talked at the beginning of his session about how looking at your education and looking at your students' education is a long-term investment, and that starts with events like this. We cannot thank you enough for investing your time in this evening to learn about the process of financing your education and paying for school. And the portion that I'm going to be covering this evening is sort of where the Office of Admissions comes into thing with our merit-based scholarships. And not having to do with scholarships, but I do just want to take one quick moment to echo something that James did mention in his session, or in his section, your email address. please give us an email address that isn't going to expire, like your high school email address will. That's the best way for us to keep in touch with you. And once you graduate from high school and you have that celebration, we want to be able to keep in touch with you about your new student orientation, about move-in day, and about all of the processes that are moving forward. So I just want to echo that. But again, just thank you in general for being here. So my name is Anders Groseth, and I work as the Associate Director for Recruitment here at Montana State University. And it's my honor to be able to talk with you about some of the scholarships that we have to offer. I want to start generally with talking about scholarships by explaining what's going on the slide right here. We are a test optional school. Actually, if we could go back real quick to that last slide. We're a test optional school, and what that means is that we have chosen to not take either ACT or SAT test scores into consideration when awarding merit-based scholarships. We want to be equitable for everybody, and we know that not everybody is a great test taker, and so we've kind of moved away from that, and I'll explain how we're doing some of the different award programs that we do have to offer. Moving forward, if you want some further information, you can see our general scholarship website right there on the screen. That will kind of detail everything for you. But as we move into our in-state and out-of-state specific scholarships, I want to dive in and make sure that you're all getting the most accurate information possible. So Keith, if you want to skip ahead one. Okay, so for my Montana families in the chat, I saw many of you chiming in and saying that you were tuning in from all across the state this evening. For our Montana families, the primary scholarship that we have to offer is called the Premier Scholarship Program. And the Premier Scholarship is an automatically awarded scholarship that's based on the information that you provided us when you applied for admission. And so you might be thinking, some of you maybe have even received award letters and thinking, I didn't even apply for this scholarship. You didn't have to. When you applied for admission at Montana State University, you were actually giving us enough information to basically be raising your hand and say, I want to be considered for scholarship money. And so these are automatic awards that are based off of your GPA coming out of high school. And as you can see on the screen there, they range in value all the way up to $10,000 in total, or $2,500 per year. And so what we hope is that for maybe some of you that are tuning in, maybe you're a junior, maybe you're a sophomore. If you are a student, we hope that this serves as a motivation that we want you to work hard in high school so that you can have the best GPA possible, so that you end up getting the best award possible. Now that $2,500 a year award, that's our top award. These awards do range in value from $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 or $2,500 per year. And on the next slide, you'll see kind of a gridded breakdown of what GPA is required in order to qualify for each award. And so I'll leave that up here just in a second, because for many of you seniors out there, it might help you if you haven't applied to Montana State University yet. It might help you gauge a little bit about where you're sitting and what Montana State University is going to be able to offer you. One thing that's very exciting for us, and you all won't know the difference because you're entering now, but all of our awards being renewable for 4 years now is a massive change at Montana State University. Again, we want to be equitable. We want to help pay for school as much as we possibly can. And in the past, we've had awards that were maybe valued for just 1 year or renewable for 2 of your 4 years. We've made that change, and we want all of our awards to be renewable for 4 years now. And so that's something that we're looking to do for all of our Montana families. That website that's down at the very bottom of the screen, that's our specific Montana student scholarship website. And so if you want to jot that down or take a quick screenshot on your computer or on your phone, that's a good resource to look into, but you can always get to it through montana.edu/scholarships or /admissions/scholarships, and you'll be led to all the right places. So there's our grid for our in-state scholarships. Now for my Montana families, I want you to hang out, because I'm going to keep talking about some of the other awards that are available, but not necessarily through my office. So you'll see here the Hilleman Scholarship. The Hilleman Scholars Program is an award program. Oh, we're jumping around. The Hilleman Scholars Program is an award program that recognizes an MSU alum named Maurice Hilleman. And this is available for our Montana students, and you can see it's a 4-year, $4,000 per year scholarship. And the qualifications for it are that there's a specific application, and a student needs to have submitted the FAFSA application as well. Now, for my colleagues who can hear me in the other room, if you wouldn't mind putting in that link that we have in our group chat, Lindsay or Lane, if you want to put in that group chat link that we have for the Hilleman program, that would be appreciated for all of our Montana families. Then there's also the Montana University System Honors Scholarship. This is essentially the Montana's Best and Brightest Scholarship. It's offered through the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education in Helena, and this goes out to a limited number of students each year. And what it provides you is eligible for use at all public institutions across the state, and we offer an additional $1,000 per year to our Montana University Honors Scholars. This is the largest award, essentially, that's offered in the state of Montana. There's traditionally about 180 of them, and Montana State University is extremely proud to have this year welcomed in 70% of the MUS Scholar recipients. They're freshmen at Montana State University this year. So again, not necessarily a scholarship that's offered directly through the Office of Admissions, but available for all of our Montana families. And we hope that you'll look into those opportunities to couple with those premier scholarships that I talked about just a moment ago. So now on to our next slide, we want to talk about our out-of-state scholarships. So for my Montana families, sit tight with me because I'm going to be coming back and I'm going to engage you here in just a second. But for our out-of-state families, we have this program called the Achievement Awards. And our Achievement Awards range in value from a $2,000 per year scholarship all the way up to a $12,000 per year scholarship. A minimum GPA of a 2.7 is required. And if you think about what I was explaining with our Montana students about that premier scholarship, many of you might have actually received an award letter already and thought to yourself, holy cow, I didn't even apply for this scholarship. Again, you didn't have to do anything separately. When you applied for admission, all you had to do was provide us with that self-reported GPA, and we're going to use that information to put together a scholarship for you. So just like I did for my Montana families, I want to go to the next slide, and we'll be able to show you that grid, letting you know kind of what you'll qualify for based off the GPAs that we have. So you can see again, oh, and I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I said that the bottom award was a $2,000. That was last year. We have upped that award amount so that now there's a $4,000 per year scholarship as our base, and then that goes all the way up to that $12,000 per year scholarship, renewable for 4 years. Now, when I keep saying that all these awards are renewable for 4 years, how does a student do that? You don't have to reapply for the awards. You don't have to petition to keep it. The other bit of motivation, sort of on the back end of things, is when I mentioned that we want you to be motivated to be the best student that you can be in high school, we want you to get here and keep being a good student. If a student maintains a 3.0 GPA, any merit-based scholarship that they are offered and that they receive is automatically renewable. That is that motivation to keep pushing yourself in the classroom, keep succeeding academically, and then you don't have anything to worry about. That renewable scholarship is going to come your way and be piped onto your student record every single year that you're here for 4 consecutive years of education, or 8 semesters if you want to think about it like that. So again, there's kind of that grid. And just like I said for my Montana families, the website at the very bottom of the screen, that is our out-of-state student-specific scholarship website. So again, if you want to take a screen grab or with your computer or your phone, use that resource so that you can look into all of the information that we're going to cover this evening. So now, as I was manning chat earlier, a hot topic of discussion is covered on the next slide, and that is the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program, often referred to as WUI. The Western Undergraduate Exchange Program is an award program that I think if you think about it generally, it is aiming at keeping students from the West in the West. And so those blue shaded states that you see on the map there, those are the states that qualify. For all intents and purposes, if you want to think about it, it is the Dakotas West. And this is not an automatic scholarship. This is a scholarship that a student does need to apply for specifically. And so again, I want to circle back and reference something that James had mentioned, the CAT Scholarships Program. And in the chat earlier, we put in the link for the CAT Scholarships Program. That is where a student will end up applying for the WUI or the WUI scholarship, I should say. We have a hard set, no exceptions made deadline for students to apply for WUI of January 3rd of 2023. circle that date on a calendar and then circle the date a week before it and get your application in early, just to take it off your list of things to do. This is not a first come, first serve award. We read every single application that we receive. It goes through a multiple review process, but this is a scholarship application that, again, just like James was saying earlier, you tell your story. This is not the time to be humble. This is the time to brag about yourself, gas yourself up, really shine a highlight on everything it is that you do for yourself that makes you who you are as an individual. Because of the value of it, as you can see on the screen, it's worth about $19,000 per year. Outside of the one full ride scholarship that I'll talk about here in just a moment, this is the largest scholarship that we offer at Montana State University, which is why it's not automatic, and it is a selective base. We offer about 800 spots per year, and just for reference, last year we received about 3,400 WUI applications, and we offered about 800 WUI offers. And so it's not automatic, but we do hope that a student will take that opportunity if they're a higher achieving student and have that story to tell, that they'll take the time to apply for the WUI application. Again, through the CAT Scholarships Program, the website of which can be found on the website there, or on the screen there, I should say. And I do want to make sure that I mention the bottom two bullet points right there. Because of the value of WUI, it is not stackable with any of those achievement awards that I mentioned. Truthfully, in your entire college search and college decision process, this is going to be the one time that we make a decision for you. If you are offered any achievement award and you are selected as a WUI recipient, we're just going to make the assumption that you want more money. And so we will always award you the award of highest value, which more often than not, or I guess I should say always, will be the Western Undergraduate Exchange Program. We will just omit your achievement award and give you the WUI program instead because it's worth more money. So that's the one decision that we'll make for you throughout the entire process. On to the next slide, the Presidential Scholarship. So I mentioned just a moment ago that I wanted to talk about the only scholarship that's worth more money than WUI is the Presidential Scholarship. The Presidential Scholarship provides a full tuition waiver and a $4,000 housing stipend. Now, this is a scholarship that's offered through MSU's Honors College. And again, maybe Lane, Lindsay, one of my other coworkers that's working the chat right now, if you want to put in a link for the Honors College, just so students who aren't familiar with it can look further into it. This award program is highly selective. When I was talking about how WUI is highly selective, the Presidential Scholarship is that to the next level. We award 24 Presidential Scholarships each year. There is a full review process of applications that come in. There's a full interview process of which roughly 50 students will be selected for interviews, and then we make award offers to 24 Presidential Scholar recipients. You can kind of see the general ballpark of the academic caliber of students that we've seen come in over the years. If you look at those numbers and you don't have those, maybe you don't have that 3.9 GPA, maybe you're not in that top 3%, maybe your school doesn't rank students at all. I still want students to apply for this award. The stories are really what are important for both the WUI and the Presidential Scholarship. These are community builders. These are culture builders for Montana State University. You can have the perfect test scores and perfect GPA, but if you don't have that story to tell, if you don't have that meat on the bone that's going to really provide something in addition to our community, that's not the purpose of these awards. And so if you look at those numbers and feel a little daunted by them, don't. I really do encourage you to still apply for the award. It's always worth that shot. And the very last bullet point that I can show you there right there, in a worst case scenario, if you're interested in the Honors College, go ahead and apply for that Presidential Scholarship, because even if you're not selected as an interview recipient, the application that you submit in order to be considered for the Presidential Scholarship can end up doubling as your application into the Honors College, which is a wonderful academic opportunity. The last thing that I want to highlight on this slide is that deadline. Oh, if we could go back to that real quick. December 2nd. That is, again, a hard set, no exceptions made deadline. December 2nd is the first Friday in December. If I have any juniors, if I have any sophomores, students that are looking at MSU for down the line, that first Friday in December, that is always the case. The date itself will change, but that first Friday notion will never change. That's when the presidential scholarship application is due. Again, able to be found through that CAT scholarships program through the Academic Work website. All right, and then other scholarships and financial aid. Outside scholarships. A lot of times students don't think about this, and when I was going through the college search, I didn't even know about it. I didn't know that my local bank or the Lions Club or any other organization from your local community might send scholarships to graduating seniors. We will accept any third-party scholarship and combine it with whether it's a Premier Scholarship for my Montana families, the Achievement Awards, whatever the case might be. We will be able to combine those third-party scholarships as long as it doesn't state that it's only redeemable at one specific institution. If that award is only renewable or redeemable at XYZ State University, then Montana State University can't accept it. But if you find something through some of these websites that we have listed on the screen here, whether it's FastWeb or scholarships.com, if you have something through your local community, send it to James's office in the Office of Financial Aid, and we'll build that into your overall financial package to get you the most financial backing as possible. And then I won't really rehash much of what James said on the deadlines for FAFSA, but I do just want to make sure that you're aware of them again. October 1st is when the FAFSA application opens each year. Montana State University's priority or preferred deadline is going to be December 1st. And FAFSA and merit-based scholarships, this always sounds backwards, they are two entirely separate things so that they can actually work together. I saw that question come in the chat earlier is, hey, if I don't qualify for anything through the FAFSA application, does that mean I don't qualify for merit-based scholarships? Not at all. They're two separate things so that they can actually work in concert. So the other question that I just want to take a quick minute, and I know we're going to do Q&A at the very end of this as well, but one question that I saw come in to the chat that was earlier this evening is, if a student accepts a Premier Scholarship or an Achievement Award or a WUI Award or anything, does that award need to be paid back once they graduate? And the answer is no. That's essentially us congratulating you for the work that you've put in through high school. And so this isn't any sort of loan program. This is basically a tuition waiver or a tuition reduction. So if you are awarded a scholarship through Montana State, there's nothing on the back end that you're going to have to pay back. That's our award to you. So I just wanted to take a quick minute to answer that last one. So. And with that, I'll be jumping back in for the Q&A, but I'm going to get out of the way and hand the reins over to my man, Keith Hamburg, from our Office of Financial Education. I thank you again for your time, and I thank Keith for his, and I'll get out of the way. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Anders. He's a wealth of information. He's a legend around Montana State campus, so thanks for having me tonight. Welcome, everyone. My name is Keith Hamburg. I serve as a senior financial coach in an office here on campus called the Office of Financial Education. People often confuse us with financial aid. I work very closely with James and his team in concert, and I just have a couple of slides to go over. So at the Office of Financial Education, we build a plan to pay for school, whether that's a budget covering direct and indirect costs. You'll see some repetition here, but making sure you've completed your FAFSA before the priority deadline of December 1st, which will be coming up in that 2 weeks. Yeah, it's 2 weeks. Accept your financial aid award when you get it. We help you with things, again, in concert with financial aid, about completing a master promissory note or entrance counseling if you take student loans. And then probably the most popular thing that we do with our friends in financial aid is to help you figure out more about that CAT scholarship and what Anders talked about, outside scholarship, because there's a ton of them. And, you know, it's general advice, but you can't win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket, and you can't get a CAT scholar, you can't get a scholarship at Montana State unless you apply for CAT scholarship. You'll see on the other side of the screen that my office, the Alan Yarnell Center for Student Success, also does hireabobcat.com. This is where, when James talked about work-study jobs, other jobs on campus, if you don't get work-study, part-time jobs off campus, that's where you will find them. and students can use that as a great resource, not only for college jobs, but for internships and after college jobs. So this picture up here was created by my coworker, Jen, and it's a budget planner, and it's specifically made no matter who you are, in-state student, achievement award, WUI student, full out of state. And we allow you, we offer this in a number of our seminars next spring and summer called Paying for School. So you can do a budget that fits you, because finances are a little bit of an individual sport. We'll help you navigate the student loan process, interest rates, actual amounts needed, consider which loan is best for you. And our bread and butter is seeing students and parents one-on-one, in-person, phone, WebEx. That's what we do, and we're happy to help you figure out how to pay for school. Here's some contact information. That is it for me. The contact information of our friends at Financial Aid is in the lower level. I think James calls it the garden level of Montana Hall, room 21. There's their phone number. There's their email address. They have a beautiful document upload. So you don't necessarily, if you're not in Bozeman, you can still get them the information that they're looking for. And then the Office of Financial Education, a little bit more about what we do on there, but there's also my contact information, my phone number, my website. Know that we also not only help you figure out how to pay for school, but after school salary negotiations, understanding loan repayment, budgeting, credit, savings, anything that has to do with finances, we deal with in the Office of Financial Education. So with that, James and I are kind of in the same room. So Anders will be able to answer questions. I'll be able to answer questions, or I'll turn the mic over to James if he needs to answer questions.
All right. So there has been a lot of questions that have come in, and we encourage you still use that chat feature because our staff is on hand. They're ripping through those as fast as they possibly can. But I do want to help kind of facilitate some general Q&A of some things that have come in over the last little bit. So Keith, one question that I think is always nice to know about your office is that I think a lot of times students sort of assume that services and resources at colleges and universities are available for students at the colleges or universities, but it's a really nice learning experience that as a student is considering Montana State to be able to talk with somebody about kind of what does it mean, what is the financial picture. Can you talk about some different opportunities, whether that's in person or virtual, to meet with students and families, possibly even before they're enrolled at Montana State?
Absolutely. One of the bright spots for us that came out of having to go virtual when we weren't necessarily on campus is what we're doing right now. This WebEx feature where my colleagues and I, as an example, we spoke to over 1,100 parents and students between April of 2022 and July of 2022 about paying for school, about the options for FAFSA. And so absolutely, Anders, we're here for parents, we're here for students. As you're a college student, you heard James say this earlier, each year you have to apply for FAFSA.
Yep.
Each year you have to apply for CAT scholarship. But I applied for it my freshman year and I didn't get a CAT scholarship. Well, then you apply for it your sophomore year. You applied for your freshman year going into your sophomore year, you didn't get anything. You apply again for your junior year. I honestly have clients who got nothing their sophomore year and a $5,000 CAT scholarship their junior year. So you have to keep applying. And yes, Anders, our office is here to help parents and students navigate. And this isn't being negative, but it's a complicated system, right? But I don't need student loans. Why should I apply for FAFSA? There are reasons to apply for FAFSA, even if you never need a student loan.
Yeah, awesome. I appreciate that. A question for James. And James, this came into the chat like way long ago. And I didn't catch the person's name, and so I hope you're still logged on with us. I apologize that I wasn't able to answer it. Hopefully we did. But somebody wrote in earlier, when you're submitting a FAFSA application, when you're applying for those grants and loans, is there a huge difference, and maybe huge is the wrong thing for me to say, is there a difference if a student is paying for school by themselves or if they're receiving help from mom and dad or a family member or any sort of third party? in terms of what they qualify for and just kind of what those differences look like if a student is going solo or if they have help from someone that's helping them out on a part of their team.
Yeah, thanks, Anders. Yeah, I'm still here. There can be a pretty big difference in terms of what that looks like in terms of eligibility. And we want to talk to you if you have any kind of hesitation about what that might look like, even before you do the FAFSA, because there are questions on the FAFSA that kind of direct us to whether or not the parental income will be needed or not. And they talk about age, they talk about homelessness, they talk about a couple different things, but we want to talk to you about those situations in advance if we can, because we're going to want to collect the information about that situation and about what goes along with that prior to that happening. So we want to get you off on the right foot. But that eligibility mostly for Pell, not for loans as much, but for Pell can change quite a bit depending on what kind of income profiles are put on the FAFSA.
Wonderful. Thank you. James, I think this one is also for you. And again, I'm sorry, I didn't really take down names as we were writing down questions, but we kind of just took down some of the common ones. James, a question that came in earlier. Due to COVID payments, my gross income was higher than normal in the last year. Will this be taken into consideration for financial aid?
We have a process internally, and you have to fill out the FAFSA form basically the way that it asks you to fill it out. But if your current income situation is different than the prior year that I mentioned earlier on, we want to talk to you as well. We want to talk about what we call special conditions, and that would be a place for where individual colleges on a campus by campus exception can go in and look at that and possibly make some adjustments and reevaluate eligibility.
Okay, great. Let's see some other ones that have come in. What happens to your scholarships if you defer? This is a great question. I think over the time of COVID, this has become almost more commonplace than it used to be. If a student defers for a year, and so for anyone who isn't familiar with that process, maybe you've applied and you've been accepted for the fall of 2023, and for whatever reason, you're going to travel, you're going to work and save money, whatever the case might be, you're not going to come in until the fall of 2024. Every school, I believe, will manage this differently, and at Montana State University, you are not locked into your scholarship. And that can be frustrating for families, and I understand that. But if we've offered you, maybe you're coming in from out of state, we've offered you that very best achievement award, that $12,000 achievement award. You are not guaranteed to receive that achievement award when you come in the fall of 2024. Now, this year is an interesting year that for most of our students who deferred, they actually saw their scholarships increase because our scholarship parameters changed a little bit. So what you'll do is you'll still be automatically considered for the awards of the year that you're entering, whether it be 23 or 24, but you'll come in under the parameters of that year instead of your initial intended year. So you'll still have that automatic consideration, but your scholarship doesn't freeze or lock in. You'll just be reevaluated under the academic year's considerations or qualifications.
Anders, and maybe they answered it in the chat, and this is James's area, but I saw the question. When will you know about your financial aid award? If that wasn't answered in the chat, anywhere from towards the end of February, March-ish, spring.
Yeah, we expect to start sometime toward the end of February, if not that early March. We got a couple federal things we're waiting on in order to kind of kick those off, but that's when we expect to start.
I would reiterate what James said. How are they going to tell you that your financial aid award is available? Email.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe texting or just email. Email. So keep an eye on it. Again, late February, March-ish, depending on when you applied. The earlier you applied, the earlier you'll get the award. Or does it go to potentially incoming freshmen first?
It's wide open. So
Okay.
Whatever's in there, we just start picking away at it as we can. So, yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if they answered that, but I just saw that come through, Anders.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. Keith, and I think you might be able to help answer this one too. I'm still learning more and more about that CAT scholarships program. Can you edit your general application for CAT scholarships after you've submitted? They mentioned specifically WUI.
Yeah. So great question. And if I'm wrong, James can stop me about 1.5 feet away from me. First of all, James said it. Anders, you said it. The CAT scholarship is, in my opinion, one of the best things Montana State University has done. It has streamlined the process. And I'll tell a current student who's like, yeah, I started it. And I will tell them that if they end up joining a club or organization when they come back after winter break, you can go in and add that and submit it again. Okay. You can actually technically submit it after February 1st. That's a big deadline for CAT scholarship, especially in most colleges. It's called the priority deadline. I kind of treat it as more like a deadline than priority, but it is still open after that. But yes, you can save your CAT scholarship and you can go back and edit it. I'll tell students who have started it, okay, you wrote your essay. Now you want someone to review it. Our writing center, a parent, a friend, a brother, a sister. You can go in, edit it, hit submit when you're confident that you're good to go. So yes, it's a great feature that you can go back in and out of that. Is that?
Accurate.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great. I mean, that's good for my knowledge. That like Keith just said, this is something that's fairly new for Montana State University. It used to just be kind of the Wild West in terms of finding scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
Man, has CAT scholarships been huge. So awesome. We got time for just like one or two more questions. I know we've taken a bunch of your time this evening. A couple of questions that have come in. Is there a wait list for WUI? Unfortunately, there's not. So when we review those WUI applications, as I mentioned, we'll make about 800 offers, ballpark that. It's not an exact science, but we'll make about 800 offers, and those offers are final offers. And so we will have students say, no, I'm not going to come to Montana State University. That happens every single year. Unfortunately, there's not a trickle down. And so those 800 offers are our final WUI offers that we make at Montana State University. Another question that came in, does MSU have reciprocity with any other states? Again, for anyone who's not familiar, reciprocity is relationship building between different states, where if you come from a state, the bordering state would give you in-state tuition. And again, unfortunately, Montana State University does not offer reciprocity to any of our bordering states, or any states for that matter. WUI would be, that Western Undergraduate Exchange Program would be the closest thing that we have to it. So. And last but not least, let's see, let's get one that kind of applies to everybody. Which scholarships are stackable and which scholarships are not? Okay, so, and I'm going to also kind of loop in James and Keith on this one to stop me if I'm incorrect. If you want to talk about the Office of Admissions specifically, the scholarships that are not stackable is if you're a Montana student, you can't get both the Premier and the Presidential Scholarship. The Presidential Scholarship covers your tuition, so there's no more tuition for the Premier Scholarship to go towards. If you are an out-of-state student, same thing. The Presidential Scholarship covers your tuition, so it is not stackable with either the WUI or the Achievement Award. And then take Presidential out of the mix altogether. The WUI and the Achievement Awards don't play nice together. They're oil and water. Those two do not stack together. Any of those awards, if you qualify for something through your academic department, through the CAT scholarships application, then those can couple with the Premiers, the Achievement Awards, the WUIs. If you get that scholarship through the math department, if you get that scholarship through the econ department, whatever the case might be, those departmental scholarships are going to play nice with any of the merit-based scholarships offered through the Office of Admissions. Keith or James, anything I got wrong on that side?
No, Anders, you hit that right. These awards, by and large, I would kind of classify as they pay tuition, right? And when some award pays a higher amount of tuition, that's the one that we're giving you to kind of go along with what that is. So we're trying to match you to the best paying tuition award that we can. But then those CAT scholarships and stuff, then they supplement and start building on.
Cool. Awesome. Perfect. Well, folks, I know we didn't get to every single question this evening, and I hope that the information that we provided was helpful in guiding this process and getting you more information that you need about, honestly, maybe the most important thing about the university experience in your college careers. That's paying for school and how to finance this major lifelong investment that you all are diving in on. And again, we cannot thank you enough for your time. I know we took more of it than you probably signed up for, but there's a lot of information to get out there. And so we just appreciate you tuning in with us this evening. I want to send a specific thank you to our staff members that are here helping us on chat. I want to send a major shout out to both Keith and James for giving their time to help us present and relay all this information to you all. Thank you all. Thank you all for our staff members and our presenters. And thank you all for tuning in and being interested in Montana State University. I hope you have our contact information. Please let us know however and whenever we can help, and we'll always be on board to do so. So I appreciate your time. I look forward to hearing from you down the line, and go Cats!